if I remember right.
Okay, I don't know, all I know is when it was the Kinney County Republican headquarters, it was, what's your face? What's the lady that was?
Give me a second. Quigley.
Well, he was the president, but who had the real estate company right in that same area? That was-
Oh, I don't remember.
Good morning.
What was the name?
Morning.
Anyway.
Not
it's
funny.
gonna be a-
Not quite.
Well, he's good.
It's gonna be, you know, the food is supposed to be down home cooking and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we went out to get away the other day and try it. He doesn't have it closed out. Mistakes.
Somebody got sick?
I did.
Uh-oh. You know the stuff.
It's coming up through yet?
That's what I was afraid of.
I have to leave at 11:30.
Yeah.
I hope we're done by
What,
then.
he was. I'm just letting you know
By
in
the way,
advance.
did you- Dan will-
Thank you.
he and-
What time do you suggest that we either set a time to begin
The
with?
funeral is
Even
on
though
Wednesday,
I
but
bought
today's family
here
rest, so
at
we're going to.
Lowe's Market. I bought 2 coupons and they would be.
Did we figure out what happened to that plane?
We know, but we can't release the information.
Good.
right now. Let's take the
Oh, yeah,
investigation
and
forward
those
and see
are
what's out there, things that themselves.
Close enough to go.
How are you?
It's 9:30 somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I've got 9:27.
I'll go by my watch.
I got 9:29.
We'll go by yours.
I got 27.
Mine goes with yours.
I got 29.
Satellite,
There we go.
satellite's on 9:29.
Came by mid-30.
You're not in Austin
Open up the discussion on what time it is.
Well, if we move.
The actual start is 9:29.
Satellite says
If we move to the
9:29.
east, we're an hour late, so let's.
Years ago, there was
It's
a
exactly
Canadian-
9:30 right
You
this
know when to
minute.
stop when you do.
And he had
Still, you
a,
remember later.
really, if you have
Yeah,
that
I'll
sense,
hear
you
what
know,
it
funny
says.
recording of where he talked about this guy that got obsessed with time, and had clocks all over.
There is somebody.
So what time it is?
It's 9:30 right now.
All right, it's 9:30, so I'm calling the meeting to order. We have present Director Maria Perkins, Director Bill Thurman, myself, Dan Sullivan, Director Deborah Isaacs, and Director John Holt, constituting a quorum. With that, I'd like to have us stand and, John, would you like to give
Yes,
us
I
a
will.
invocation?
Yes, I will. Lord, we thank you so much for everything that you do for us, and just as we gather here to make decisions on our lives and all of our people that live on Fort Clark's lives, give us the strength to make the right decision for them and for us. And Lord, just guide us in the right direction and help us make these decisions. We ask this in your Son's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
My new neighbor.
to begin, would the board like to set a time limit for this meeting? Doesn't mean we have to go that long, but to go no longer than whatever you may suggest. Do you have any suggestions, comments?
Well, I know one member needs to get out here around 10:30,
But no later than 11:30.
11:30.
Yes, sir.
Set it for 11.
11? Is that all right with everyone? Okay, at 11 o'clock, we will adjourn and then take up whatever's unfinished at another time.
Okay.
Right, what we have before us today is the task of reviewing, making any revisions that we as a board feel appropriate to the recommendations received from 3 ad hoc committees. One regarding the RV park, and thank you folks for all your hard work. And one regarding renter policy, and thank you all for your hard work. And another one involving the rules and regulations, which have not been revised since 2006. And I thank any members that may be present from that committee also. So we want to incorporate that all into one document eventually. And the way we approach it and proceed, I will be open to suggestions from the board members. But first, I'd just like to make an interesting brief announcement. There seemed to have been some concern over the fact that the association was wasting money by installing no parking signs across from the adult center along Fort Clark Road. And of course, the answer is we didn't. Those signs have been there for years and years and years. You just have to take a look. So we haven't wasted any money doing that. Thank you. Now, how would you like to proceed?
I suggest we start with the RV Campers World.
I agree.
Okay, we have agreement, we'll start with that. Then, so be it. Who would like to open up the discussion?
Well, I have one question. On item number 4, check-in time 1 p.m., checkout time 11 p.m. Should that be a.m.?
I think you may be right, although you can change it.
No, I have no problem. It's just I don't think you have to come in at 1 today and then have to get out by 11 today.
Yeah.
Or if you're coming in at 1, you want the guy to already be out, you're taking his place.
So I think that's probably supposed to be 11 a.m. Then that's, so that's no big deal.
What's the one?
Check in.
Is that the only time they can check in?
Well, I would think
Well, they can check in anytime
after
that.
1 o'clock, actually.
1
Oh,
o'clock.
so-
It's like a motel room. You check in after a certain time,
Yeah.
and you check out before a certain time in the next
So
day.
if they get here early, they can't come in and check in? No matter what time they get here at 9 o'clock in the morning, they
There may
can't
not
check
be a
in?
space available for them.
That's
Does the
usually
front
kind
gate
of
know?
flexible if it's an
Does the front
open.
gate check them in?
I didn't hear you.
That's usually kind of flexible, but, every campground's got those rules of check in and check out. And that's about normal.
But I had a question. Does the security guard, do they check them in if they come in late in the evenings and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah, if they check in or out after hours now, as I understand it, security takes care of that.
That's what I thought.
So what do you want to do with that? You want to,
Well, I think we ought to leave the time. We need to have a time, because if there's some work being done out there to straighten up whatever, maintenance has to have time to finish it. But if, like you say, if somebody comes in early at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock,
well, you want to change it maybe to 10 a.m., check-in time is 10 a.m., and they have to check out at 11? So,
Well, my question was, is that the only, by this stating this here, that looks like that's the only time they can check in and the only time they can check
I
out?
think that's,
No, because every hotel has that on their website.
Well, I know a hotel does.
It's the
well, same
concept.
thing.
Yeah, same concept.
pretty common.
Check out by
Well,
11
I'm not an
p.m.,
RVer,
check
so-
in by 1 o'clock or what have you.
Yeah, I think, the
If
time.
there's space available, they can check in early, it's not good to do it.
That's the point is you have to have a time, because if something's going on or something happens, you have to. have
They
time
can
to
always
straighten out.
request,
Yeah.
that doesn't have to be adhered to like it's chiseled in stone. someone shows up early and it's no problem,
Yeah,
it would be crazy to turn them away and tell them to come back. That doesn't make sense.
That's my point.
So
I think
we
the only
could
thing is
always,
to change the PM to an AM.
Yeah, that's what I say.
you might wanna say a check-in time is 12 noon at the option of, management.
Well, I'm assuming that once this is done, it's probably gonna go on the website, if somebody's looking at the website.
So,
And if they're traveling and they find the website or something where somebody's told them, I just think it ought to be a little more flexible.
What's the check-in time at the motel?
2,
Checkout time?
But
Okay, so the 11 for us out here would be the same. The only difference is that RV park, you can check in at 1, motel, you check in at 2. But I'm sure if somebody comes in early, and, you know, they'll accommodate you. If the rooms
Sure.
are ready, they'll let you check in, you know, earlier. I don't see any problem with it.
Don't you imagine that the webpage should say early arrivers or late arrivers can be checked in at the front gate?
well, I was gonna ask,
Security?
I was gonna ask a big picture question. This
No.
committee, did they go research other RV parks and see what other RV parks in Texas does? Because when I did a research on it, and there's an RV park here in Texas that has really good rules that are similar to these, but they're a little more broad to give you some,
well, I think one of the ladies that was on that committee actually manages one over at Lake Amistad.
because there's, I mean, aside from the check-in and check-out time, which I don't know.
I brought the rules and regulations of another RV park, Quail Valley,
Mm-hmm.
and give it to them.
Well, is that on their website? I don't even know what it says. RV Texas 6 RV Park Rules and Regulations. The way they structured theirs, it's actually really good. They start in general. That registration payment is due immediately upon arrival, which I don't know if that's what we do here. We pay immediately upon arrival. After hours check-in, please completely fill out the registration form, which I see that we have one somewhere in here. And then there's a lot of the similarities that are in this one, but then it goes into children and visitors, which is not detailed in this. That all visitors have to check in and comply with the overall park rules and regulations. So I think that's probably something we want to address in this, but it's gonna be on our website.
A number of those members of the committee were highly experienced at RVing, some full-timers for years. And the one thing is 1 o'clock is probably not a big deal because the norm with RVers is when they are going to check in, they usually show up around 4 o'clock or later because they travel during the day. They're leaving their home or they're leaving another RV park and they're on the road traveling all day.
Yeah.
And they arrive at the RV park sometime late afternoon, early evening. So I don't think you're gonna get many, it does happen, but it's not gonna be a real big problem of people coming in earlier.
No, I don't think so.
I think we'll just leave it at 1 and, you know,
Okay.
security, if the RV park and security are on the same page, when somebody pulls in, security will know if the RV park is ready to accept visitors at an earlier time.
Well, that's true, and I think most people know if they wanna check in early, they aren't so bashful that they wouldn't ask, say, can we check in a little early?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So we're gonna change the checkout to AM and leave it like it is 1 PM.
Yeah, I would say.
1
Okay.
PM and then the 11 PM changed to 11 AM.
Right.
Mhm.
Number 2, no idling vehicles.
I think what they were getting at there, you have, especially with as many workers as we have in the RV park, they'll be up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning getting ready to go, and they crank up their diesel pickup and leave it sit there and idle while they finish getting ready, which is not pleasant for other RVers that aren't.
Up here.
Yeah, but a diesel, you've gotta let it warm up some, you just can't go start it and take off in
I know I drove many of them.
it. I have
home
too,
today.
I have
So,
too.
Yeah, you can, but we're talking about maybe they sit there for a half hour and
Yeah.
idle instead of 5 minutes.
That just kind of, no idling, because I do know a lot of the rigs now are diesel rigs, and that just kind of caught my eye. I'm not an RVer, but it still catches my eye as no idling.
Maybe you could have
Maybe limited.
no unnecessary items.
Idling.
Yeah, I think that's what it should say.
You got somebody.
Yes, sir.
Can people out here make a comment?
Sure.
Being a former RVer, one thing that I found more attractive in parks was that the long-term campers were separated from the short-term campers. I mean, if I want to go in there someplace and stay for a week or two, then I really don't want those diesel engines firing up from people who are parked right next to me.
I think that as we get into this recommendation, they address that, I was.
Okay, good, thank you.
Good point, though.
So it should say no unnecessary idling of vehicles.
Yes.
Okay.
There was something about motorcycles, not being able to drive their motorcycles through it all. If somebody's here on the fort visiting, so you don't really want them to drive through and look at the facilities. I think I'm down on,
It's number 14.
that was something else, because a lot of people, those bikers come in here and they do this whole tour around, and if they come up on us and then they're told that they couldn't even drive through it to see what we offered, is that really something we want to have in our rules? 14, I believe, is where it's at.
Well, it's saying not to drive it in the RV park, it's not
Oh,
saying not
yeah.
to drive it around the fort.
Yeah, but I know, but if you come down here and you find this place and you wanna come back and you don't know what's even there to offer, because you can't drive through it.
No, it's not saying you can't, it's saying you can't ride it around in the RV park. So what I took that to mean is you can't drive circles around and rev it up and all that stuff, and that's what I took it.
Well, it says
I don't
ATVs,
understand.
motorbikes, or motorcycles are not to be ridden in the RV park, except when going to and from RV or campsite.
Right, so you could drive around the fort and make your way back to the RV site, and that's fine.
No. If you're on a motorcycle and you're touring the fort, what I took that to say is you can't drive that, but if you don't have a campsite, no motorcycles are supposed to be in there if you're not already camped. I don't know, but that's the way I read it.
Well, it says going to or from RV or campsites.
Mhm.
So they could be going in to inspect the campsites and that.
Well,
would
I
allow
want
them.
everybody to understand they could go in there and inspect them.
I take that as you can drive it in there, but you can't just go around doing circles. Heads nodding.
We have people now that show up there, as I have been told, with vehicles like that and just drive around. And
Right, that's what I understood it to mean.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion here? When we're reading these, it might be a good idea to kind of think of them as giving management, the RV park management, a basis for which to address a problem.
Yeah.
So that if a person who is idling his truck is causing a problem, the management has a rule to enforce. If it's not really a problem, then he doesn't have to enforce it. In the same way, if a person is driving their motorcycles or RV, ATVs or what have you, in a way that disturbs the residents there, then the management has a rule to enforce. So I wouldn't try to pin it down any closer than that. Just kind of think of it in terms of giving tools to the management to address problems.
Okay.
Because I find that just, we spent about 20 minutes on just a couple of little items here, and we're not gonna get through this very quickly. So I would just recommend that you kind of consider that the committee has debated these issues, and unless we really find something severely wrong with them, I would suggest you kind of let management have a,
Do they have
Rule to
anywhere
enforce.
in here where they grant that authority that'll sort of open?
well, if it's not, then it probably should be.
Failure to follow rules of the RV park and campers will result in being asked to leave.
Right, but that's very definite, and that's kind of one of the notes
There.
I had on here too. Like, what happens if you don't follow the rules? Is it a one time and you're kicked out? Is there a progression of, okay, first time you're gonna get a notification, second time you're gonna get a notification with an assessment, third time you're gonna get kicked out and have
Well,
to
the
pay an
question,
FGC?
the
That's
point
not
is,
in there.
the point is that management has the right to kick you out.
I would
But
rec-
that doesn't mean that they're gonna kick you out the first time something
No,
happens.
Exactly, so why
So-
can't we put that here?
Why
So
not?
management, we reserve the right to remove or what have you, and just leave it there and kind of in a catch-all situation. They're not gonna exercise that, I mean, we're not gonna exercise that against the customer unless they're really being obstructive.
Right, but if there's, like, with everything, there should be a tier, kind of a deal. If you're a first offense, you get this. Second offense, you get that. 3 strikes, you're out. Yeah, I mean, you know, I see people shaking
I
their
would
heads.
That-
at
think
that's
that.
time they need to go.
That would be up to the management.
I think
when
that's
you-
a management call.
Correcting, then they need to go.
So a very general statement would be an
And if it's the
appropriate
first
statement,
time,
in
it
my
doesn't
opinion.
matter, they need to go, so.
And it already does in the acknowledgement of receipt and rules, it does say that I have read, understand, and agree in it to adhere to the rules, and Fort Park Springs Association management reserves the right to refuse service to anyone.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada bang.
I like that.
Which is in the acknowledgement.
Now granted, I don't RV, but in most of the RVs, rules and
me.
regulations that I read, bless you, I read there's a limit to how many people are considered to be part of a reservation. One of them says maximum of 6 people, but the rates include 4 people. So, again, not being an RV person, are there situations where somebody's coming in with an RV full of people and then they're setting up camp with more than what's a reasonable amount to be in an RV? Because we're saying that you can have 1 RV and 2 vehicles, but there's no limitation on people. So I'm just asking the question.
Those were the only questions I had personally on this.
Well, if you limit people to 4, then what do you do with a couple that has 4 children? You're gonna tell them they can't stay here?
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking, like some of
Yeah,
them
we
say
can.
maximum of 6 people, but 4 people are included. So I'm just asking, this is a general question. I don't RV, so I don't know those.
I think somewhere down the line, management has to make a call on whether it's, if they're over there just camping out, or if they're really just RVers. Are they gonna be squatters?
Well, there are several sites that specified people, so I don't know if that's a problem.
I don't think
Some
we need
kind
to
of natural
specify
thing.
how
I don't think we do either.
A lot of RV parks have on one guest must leave, and no guest after a certain time of the night. I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying a lot of them do have that. Some of them that we've experienced even charge you for guests to come in, like $1.50, $2 for every guest you have to come in. Yes,
Generally, most RV parks, if you have more than maybe 2 people, they charge you $2 or $3 for every additional person.
and we could have a maximum of 4, and then say arrangements must be made for additional people, leaving it up to management.
Again, I might suggest to you that unless it's really ever been a problem before, that we just address it generally, again, management reserves the right to refuse service to anyone. If a school bus outfitted as a camper brings in 20 people, we probably would refuse service. So unless it's really been a problem, I think a general remedy is best.
Some families have 4 or 5 kids. I mean, you can't stop a family.
Yeah, they do.
I just
far-
asked the question,
No,
I
I'm-
didn't say we had to do it.
But saying, specifying 4 members only, because like some of these families that are working, they may have 3 kids and then 2 adults, so, I mean,
Yeah,
specifying.
I would say that
Get rid of one.
unless it poses a problem.
I think that should be management call.
I do too.
And my next one is number 24. I think that should just be incorporated into that last statement as opposed to being rule number 24. That way it's in bold and caps.
Down there with the failure to follow rules.
Because it
Oh,
also
yeah, there
is,
it is.
it's also in the acknowledgement receipt of rules, but you can leave that in here.
I think it should also say we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason.
Right, but then just merge it into that last statement.
This last statement
Because that's
down
a
here
pretty-
instead of up here,
It's just
make it
significant
a bold statement.
And then in pet rules, number 4, should be chaining, not chain. And then the other question I had is at the very bottom where it says Fort Clark Springs is not responsible for loss, damage, or claims of damage. This is a condensed summary of our rules, so my question is where are the rest of the rules if this is condensed?
So you're thinking after we go through the rules and regulations, specify in the rules and regulations where.
Well, I'm asking if that's even necessary,
I don't know.
or,
Keep in mind that what our goal is that this will be incorporated into the rules and regulations.
well, I understand that, but,
It'll be part of it with the heading RV park.
so then are we needing to add in there that the fort rules and regulations apply, or, because when I read this, and if I'm gonna be here to RV, and I read this and I say, okay, here are the rules, but wait a minute, some fine print down here says these are condensed, so where are the rest of the rules?
Are they giving, if
I
they're
would-
long-term
Right, but
ones, don't they get a
don't know
copy of
that.
the rules and
Well,
regulations?
if they don't, they should.
Yes.
And if they're given the rules and regulations that y'all revise, and this is made a part of that and perhaps highlighted for the RVers, then I think it becomes rather clear then that they have to abide by these as well.
As well.
Because many of them do not. And it
Exactly.
creates some difficulties for us because we don't have a rule then to enforce because this hasn't been applied.
Right.
So,
Right.
So then we need to add in there the specific
a
summary of the
condensed summary of
rules.
our FCSA rules and
Yes.
regulations.
Yes, and I wouldn't even put our, I would just put.
Let's
FCSA.
follow all association rules and regulations. I would say.
And then, in addition to that, on the acknowledgement of receipt of rules, it needs to state not only this little one pager, but in addition, the rules and regulations for the fort. Need to
And
have
actually,
that.
that needs to be made something more than a little footnote.
Yes.
Yes.
But it also needs to be in this acknowledgement that they're saying, that they understand that. Because the first line says, I understand and adhere to the rules of the RV park, but it should say, and for Clark Springs Association, or I am responsible for the Westwood Fort as well, or however you want to word that. But those are my notes on this one. On the second page, what I didn't see in here was pet information. When someone's moving here and they have to fill out documents when they're moving in, you have to acknowledge you have a pet, because I filled it out for my dog. Is that not something that is information we want if we're telling them that they have pet rules to abide by? Because in the rules and regulations, it says all pets have to be registered.
Yeah, it does, in the real rules and regulations, it does. Do they register their pets in the RV park, I guess?
Well, somebody would need to know, oh yeah, this person has 2 pets, and they're not supposed to have more than 3, so if somebody sees 4 more dogs hanging out at their house, clearly that's a violation of both rules.
Any RVers got comment on that?
Well, the thing is though, if somebody comes in with a lot of pets, because the rules say no more than 3, if management finds somebody with 5 pets, they can suggest or tell them that it's illegal, you cannot have 5 pets.
That's not uncommon, most RV parks limit pets, I think. to
I
2.
understand that.
That's
Oh,
what
yeah, I'm
I
not
was saying.
saying anything.
But she's saying, do they register them anywhere that you know, as a person,
Yeah.
how many pets this RV has? Do they have any, or do they have some?
Because residents have to do that.
Yeah, the residents have to put something out there.
Chuck,
The only requirement I ever ran into in any park was that they would set a size limit on the dogs, like 35 pounds, 45 pounds, or something like that. But as far as pets are concerned, it was pretty much wide open except for that.
I was just thinking that very thing. It seems to me it would be better than listing the various dogs that you cannot have, but to set a size limit on those
All those
dogs
dogs.
would resolve a lot of problems.
You know, in the pet thing, they've specified certain dogs that cannot be allowed, not allowed in the RV.
But that's still not her question. Her
Yeah, that's
question
not
is,
her
if an RVer comes in and they have a dog, and it is a larger dog, and it gets out and it gets loose, and it gets run over, and somebody starts looking for the owner of that pet, we have no clue who has a dog and where we might.
So there should be a requirement to register your pet when you
Yes,
come
in
in.
the RV.
It should never be loose.
Well, they do get
But they
their,
get
Following
I'm
the
sorry.
rules,
the
then
door gets open, and the pet runs out, somebody knocks the door, not thinking, and the pet does get loose.
Campground should know
These
how
are
many
really
pets
good.
they have.
Mr.
That's,
And-
I think that's what
These are
she's
really
asking
good.
for.
Not,
If you scroll up,
vaccination, shot records should be available.
But it's not in the
Not saying
acknowledgement.
you
of
have
the-
to
scroll
check
up
them.
and it'll
Yes.
tell
But
you
they
like,
should have their
all the stuff
records
that people
available.
need to fill in.
That tells everybody, you better be up to date.
That website is
Would
really
you include
good.
on this?
On the
It
red
does,
line.
like scroll up and it'll show you.
We have more than one charger, us, and
Yeah,
we
it
are
answers
charging
those questions,
less.
doesn't it?
I'll send you the link to that,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
this website was really great with the rules and with the registration process. I really liked it. I don't know anything about these things, but I can pull that.
That could just be added to this acknowledgement that was received
To
from rules.
register.
Right,
To
yeah, I
register
mean,
your
that's
pets
what I
also.
wrote
But
here.
as Mr. Chuck Fields over here said, with respect to the
Yes.
types of animals, I would
I-
simply set a weight
A
limit.
weight limit, I think that's better than specifying a
And the
certain
weight
dog.
Well, in the
Limit's
rules
gonna
and
be
regulations, we specify what types of
40
animals are not
pounds,
allowed.
50 pounds?
Well, even then, I would say we still need to put a weight limit. Well, I don't know, maybe
know
both,
that that's
maybe
reasonable.
both.
I
Maybe
really
both.
don't know that that's reasonable, because my dog is supposed to be an 80-pound dog, and he's 100 pounds, and he's a chocolate lab.
Yeah,
But if someone sees him, they're terrified of him because they think he could be a
right,
deer.
right.
So-
It may be tight, and, well, I don't know, it can't be tight.
I
You
mean,
couldn't camp.
there's
You
your,
couldn't, you couldn't.
On
Our,
base, like-
our insurance carrier should have some input onto certain dogs or breeds or something, I don't know.
well, if somebody wants a mastiff, we can't tell them, hey,
No.
you can't have a mastiff. They're the sweetest animals in the world, pretty much. So, on base, there's a breed
I
limitation.
think that goes back
That's
in,
it.
I just
So-
think we need to have RVers register their pets and make sure their shots and stuff are
Shots
up
and-
to date.
I do too.
I do too.
We'll go into the other.
On pet rules, can we put a parentheses around this, must be registered?
I think so.
Mhm.
Well, you can, yeah, you
Just
can
add
do that, and then add it to this.
Just at the office,
should be
right,
over
not
here.
at security, is that what you're?
Yeah, not
Yeah.
a security,
Yeah.
at the RV park,
Registered
registration.
They need to be registered and you have to have your shot records available
Right.
if you need them.
We won't accept just a statement signed by them that they have had all the necessary vaccinations.
No, what happens if one bites a kid and
I mean,
something?
we never carried pets with, but
Yeah.
a lot of people, I think, do, and they don't necessarily have papers with them.
Yeah,
Well,
but they
Just like
usually
a
have a
horse, you
tag
could
or
carry
something.
they have a
the-
tag or something.
That they've been
If-
inoculated or whatever.
Sure.
Make them brand
You get enough campgrounds, you learn to carry them with you.
Yeah, every hotel that
Now,
we go
that-
to with our dog, we have to provide the paperwork.
Sure, you either
It's on the
got the
website.
paperwork or you have the dog tag that
The dog
shows.
tags aren't even valid, like, for any
Yeah.
military installation, you have to provide the actual
We're
paperwork.
not on a military.
I get that, but I'm just saying, like, even for
But the
Marriott,
dog
I have
tag,
to
it
show the
has the
paperwork.
date that it was vaccinated and everything on
Well,
it.
we can require it The RV person could make a determination, but they need to start requiring that they get them.
Set rules must be registered at office.
Must be registered at office and show proof.
Current vaccination.
Yes, current vaccination.
Same verbiage for the horses, whatever you use for horses.
I don't know that you need to check each time. It's just we just need to remind them they need to have their shot records here in case they bite somebody, but, you know, you're asking the check-in people to do a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
They have to do that, you know, I just know that
But
they
Ms.
could
Perkins
ask
just-
me and I better have it.
Ms. Perkins just showed me a registration form online, which we could maybe eventually go to, which asks these kinds of questions. It's quick and easy, and it's just a matter of verification, so I don't foresee it's that big of a deal.
No, it really isn't. If you got a pet,
Well,
you're taking care of your pet if you're traveling. Most people. On the registration form, like the next one, maybe I don't understand a lot of the RV traveling plans per se, but I didn't see anything where it says that the duration of stay. Is that something that's important ever when someone's checking in and out of an RV park?
Not when we have, we're having these people that's almost gonna stay here a year. So we can't put a limit on them.
Well, I mean, like when you go to the Marriott, you
Pathfinder.
say I'm checking in on this day and checking out that
No.
day. So I'm just asking. I
Well,
don't
if they
know.
check in this day and check out, they gotta be out by 11. It says that on the other page,
Well,
11 a.m.
Ms. Perkins raises an issue that is a delicate issue, and it's one that the board, I think, is gonna have to address, whereby you have certain persons who move into the RV park and stay forevermore. And that actually then creates not an RV park, but a mobile home park. And the board has to decide if it's going to continue to allow that, or if it's gonna set some limits on how long a person can come and stay.
Most
Is
of
it an
these
RV
websites
park or is it
have
a mobile home park? That's the
Well,
way I see the question.
Here's the deal. We have winter Texans that keep units down there all year. They go home and then they come back. So we want to run them off?
They really should be moving their units into the storage area. That's a common practice with most RV parks.
Okay, do we have a storage area for an RV park?
Yes.
Yes.
we do.
Okay,
It's
then it
only
ain't no
like, what,
problem, is it?
So maybe
25
that
hours
needs
a
to be
month or
reflected
something,
in.
25.
Then it ain't no
25 on
problem.
the storage, but I think a lot of them were griping because they didn't have a vehicle to move them. And at the point in time that they allowed them to stay there, they upped the rent on staying in the RV park, but they were supposed to be unconnected.
I'm sure they could hire somebody, get somebody to move it. We were over there one year, an old couple that were there all the time, needed to move. They had a huge old trailer, and they had no problem finding someone on the fork with a nice big 350 or 450 dually to hook it up and haul it up north for them.
But could that not be a service that we charge someone to move it for, like Philip or somebody?
Could
I think we've got big trucks, right?
But
I-
a lot of RV parks won't let you even stay in them, 365.
Well,
And
that's-
our rules
I
used
was
to
about
state
to
that, but
say.
it's no longer in there. But at one time it did.
That's what
It
it
says
says.
non-members can only stay, I think, 2 months.
But you might also want to look at putting full-timers in an area back to themselves or something.
Segregate them a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's I understood they were going to address that, maybe they decided not to, I don't know.
And then workers should be in a spot, and then your people that are coming in and out, kind of as your winter Texans or your overnighters should be in another spot possibly to eliminate,
You can get into,
areas and sides, there is.
Well, it's for sure that
I just think
the
that how long it's
RV park
been,
needs to be separated out. People that are just coming and going and people that are staying, they don't just need to be dumped side by side down there.
exactly, and I've heard a lot of complaints about it, but
Well, in my research, what I learned was that people who frequent the same RV park, they reserve, like, when they're making the reservations, they specify, I want this specific spot. So my question with a check-in, check-out date is, for logistical purposes, if somebody's calling and saying, hey, I'm headed back down to Fort Clark Springs, I would like to reserve this spot, and the manager is looking at the map and saying, well, I've got this spot already taken, and the next question is, well, when is the person leaving, because I'd like to go back where I always go, what would the answer be? Well, I don't know, they didn't put a checkout date. I just think if this is similar to a hotel with regard to you're on wheels instead, I think that we should have a legitimate request for a checkout and or check-in and check-out date.
How do you know how that works, Charles? I know you're in
Well, I
there,
know how
you've
it
been
works
here.
now.
Yeah.
Which probably seemed to work pretty good. If you're a winter Texan and you're going to leave, say on March the 1st, and you're gonna be back on October the 1st, when you leave, you pay a deposit for that spot. If you want that particular spot back, you pay a deposit of whatever it is, $350 or whatever the monthly rate is. And then they write it up, they got a big board there that they write it on. So like, John Bridgers is coming in December the 1st. They put people in that spot now, but they don't put anybody in there that's gonna be there on December the 1st.
And if somebody is there and he comes in, then
Yeah,
they
he
have
has
to
to
move.
leave.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't absolutely.
And
That's
they
not
would,
in there.
they would tell him he's gonna have to leave.
So those kinds of things aren't in here. So I would say again, check-in, check-out date seems appropriate to me, but
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
affected by this.
In every park I ever camped in, you came in and you said, and they, at the front desk, when you said, I'm ready to check in, they say, okay, how long do you want this slot for? You say 2 weeks, well, by golly, you better be out of it 2 weeks, because somebody else is coming in.
That's
So
true.
that's
That's
common.
very true.
Oh, that's-
Let me interject here in the rules and regulations, the new
the proposed.
proposed. Reservations will be taken or
More than a year.
not more than 1 year in advance.
Right, but what,
Reservations for specific sites may be made by any member by paying at least 1 month member rate in advance at the time of registration. No refunds for cancellation will be given unless cancellation is made at least 60 days before the reservation date. An increase in any fees or charges at the RV park will apply to all campers on the effective date of the increase, whether or not the camper has paid in advance. Non-members will be accepted at the RV park, space permitting. Stay will be limited to no more than one consecutive 30-day stay in the park within a 6-month period. Any exceptions may be approved by the executive management. Now, that's what they have put in the rules and regulations,
Sounds good.
that's
which goes deeper than
No, RV.
the RV park deal. So if we incorporate this, or incorporate the RV park suggested changes, or rules and regulations, into the rules and regulations, the rest of this could be added. Right?
Yeah, if it's
Well, that's
left
putting
in, it
30-day
automatically is
restrictions.
part of it.
Now, 30-day restriction, I don't know. I know you have snowbirds.
well, and that's. what's
Winter
in the
Texans,
current
excuse
one.
me.
Don't forget where you are.
But when they come, if they've reserved a spot, and they're gonna be here December 1st, they get their spot. At that time, they can say, we will be here until
Yes.
March 5th, 6th, whatever.
But aren't those members, aren't they recreational members at that point?
Some of them are.
Because this says non-members. So if you're not a member, you're limited to 30 days within a 6-month period.
Generally, if they're gonna stay more than that, they buy the FRM membership, cause we give them $100 a month off,
Oh,
to pay a $38 a month dues.
Mm-hmm. So then that really just applies to non-members, it doesn't apply to members.
I guess it's $40 or something.
You know, you could change non-members to RV park
Patrons?
patrons or something like that. That way it covers everybody, you know.
I kinda think we've gone through this, and I don't think we really need to approve it till we get through the rules and regulations, because we may wanna take the rules and regulation and tweak this a little more.
Right, I
But I
understand.
think we've asked a lot of questions, got a lot of input, which I think is very helpful.
Right, but the point being is that basically, we're not voting on anything.
Yeah, I think,
No, but we're kind of putting a new program together to fix the gaps, if you will.
yeah,
So in a sense, we could say, this is,
Page 5.
we are okay with this write-up, with the changes, and then we can then,
Yeah, we're okay with it for now.
for now.
right,
And then when we incorporate it in with the rules and regulations, we'll readdress it all
Right.
and make sure that any necessary adjustments are made.
And we could put a section in the rules and regulations, just for RVers, so that they can go right to that spot, which included the form we got, plus from the two different ad hoc committees, you combine them, and comments from the audience. And we can do the same thing with renters. We can go through it, if it's a good contract or a good statement for renters, we're okay with it, but now we will incorporate it into the rules and regulations, and you could have it listed as a separate section, just for the renters.
So this is
But
back
it's
to the
included- It's
question.
included all in the rules and regulations.
Are we gonna do check-in, check-out dates? I think we need them.
It's already in the rules.
No, it's not. When you fill this paper out, it's tenant registration. It just says tenant registration.
Tenant registrations for the rentals, that's rentals, that's, the people wanting to rent properties.
I mean, this RV park thing, sorry. When you sign this, all you're telling them is your vehicle and now pet information, but it doesn't say, I'm checking in this date, I'm checking out this date. I already know, based on this other document, that I have to be there, my check-in time starts at 1 o'clock and I have to check out at 11 in the morning, whenever I decide to check out. But why don't we have, this is my definitive check-in date, this is my definitive check-out
Well-
date, and if I wanna extend my stay, I can call in and extend it that way, or walk to the front office or whatever. That's my question.
Then we have in the rules,
Well, the rule-
checkout time.
Just a time, not,
Well, yeah, it says
not
check-in.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or a month. There's nothing like that they're having to specify.
I see what she's saying, that
Yeah,
should be made a part
A part of that
Right, yes.
registration.
of the registration form.
That's what she's
But
saying.
again, like going back to that form I just showed you, you know, it covers it.
You
But-
gotta have that, because somebody might call in and say, hey, I'd like to come in next
Yes.
month.
And this is the document they signed, this is the document they're given to read, so.
Yes,
Right.
yes. It should be on on that acknowledgement of the receipt and stuff.
So we are adding check-in, check-out dates.
Check in, check out.
Because they may want a specific spot, and if we don't know how long somebody's gonna be there, it's hard to
Exactly.
give that specific spot to them.
Exactly.
So it should say check-in date and check-out date.
And then the follow-up question to that is there an appropriate time frame that is too long for them to be in that, like the year, 2 years?
Well,
Yeah.
if you're gonna stay there a year, then you're not an RVer, and you shouldn't be in an RV park.
So then that needs to be specified in the rules. To be considered an RV park guest, vacationing or winter texting,
My
or
next
whatever it is.
question is then, do we need to make a determination if we're gonna try to keep residents full-timers, or we're gonna allow full-timers? Does that need to be done at this time, because we're trying to do something productive here, or not?
Well, I think
None of
that it
this
needs
is
to be
final
discussed.
here.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just asking the question of the board.
It should be discussed. If that's something that affects who is staying in
My
this
point.
RV park, we need to discuss that.
Mr. Chuck, you've an RVer. Do RVers stay in one park all year round?
There are parks that allow that. An excellent example of that would be that RV park that's actually in town up at Fredericksburg. They have permanent residents of park model RVs, and a park model simply means you're not self-contained. Have park model residents in the back part of the park, and then those who come and go are in the front part, and those that are in the back part are not pull-through lots, they're back-in lots and plant, and several of those people back there have nice little gardens in front, you know, where the hitch is even. So they're very,
Yeah, you can-
they're well-kept places.
As you travel around the country, you'll find that there's about every which way of handling it as you can imagine. And what we need to do is decide how we want to handle it. And the only thing I would mention, it's a Solomon question, is, not Solomon, is, on one hand, we have these permanents, you can call them whatever you want, they're permanents, that produce a lot of revenue for us. And on the other hand, we have an RV park that has been used as a draw, a gateway, so to speak, to bring people in that end up buying properties here and living here. So you don't want to lose either one, and I don't know if the answer is to eliminate one. If you just let the permanents take over the whole park, you're going to eliminate those RVers coming in here. So the question is, can you find a happy balance by having a separate area or something? Yes.
I can offer a suggestion. It may be prohibitively expensive to do it, I don't know. But we already have 2 units that have single-wide trailers parked in them. And I understand, I don't know, but I understand that many of those are way past delinquent and totally abandoned. And if that's the case, then perhaps the Ford needs to take those properties and make them available for people who want to come in and stay a year or longer.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
Which I think is an excellent
That's a
idea.
good idea.
You're talking about it in the units,
Like
some,
unit 15 or something?
3 and 15.
Unit 3, Unit
yeah, the
14.
first problem, of course, is to get title to them.
Like I said, I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
it's a good idea, and it's been brought up and discussed and thought of before, but, it's not a simple, easy process. You just can't go in and demolish what's there and rent it out. I mean, we gotta own it.
Although we do have some lots like that, and what he's suggesting is doable even pretty quickly.
That's good.
So,
7 and 3 would be the prime places.
mhm.
The first thing you would have to do is get the CCNRs, get the people over there, because the CCNRs will have to be changed somehow or another. Because they are,
Some of them are already
are they?
prepared for that, yeah.
Okay, well, that would be the 2 easiest ones to do something like that in, because they are so small to start with, the lots themselves.
The other thing you're gonna deal with is a lot of those people that are living in the RV park permanently are there, some of the reasons are they want the camaraderie, the activities and all that, so now if you move them over to a separate
And that
lot
is
out
it.
there, aren't gonna like that. Some may like it, I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out.
Is there a plan to expand the RV park?
There are not plans right now. We're having difficulty to take care of what we got, much less expand it, so.
Well, do we have a problem with, we got too many people that we can't get campers in or out? Every time I go over there, there's empty spots.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
Yeah.
every report I see, it's like pretty much empty. But
But if,
my question though is, what is the point of an RV park? Is the point of the RV park to have people there living full-time, or is it there as a transient destination, if you will, for people that are trying to find a place to stay and enjoy that for a short period of time as they move about?
that's something else,
Yeah.
because it isn't cheap. I mean, when you get your TV, you get your internet, you don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to
No
do.
internet.
Not anymore.
Oh, there's
Or
not,
is it insurance
well,
pays?
water, electric and all that for $350 a month, or whatever it is, I'm not even sure what it is. But then again, they're getting all the benefits of everything for $35, and their monthly fee includes everything that you and I have to pay for.
Which is, again, the question phrased a
I
different
know, I
way.
understand it.
Is it a mobile home park, or is it an RV park, or, as Mr. Sullivan's pointed out, can it be both? So, that's not a question that I think y'all can decide today, but it's
No.
one that you have to address eventually, and you will definitely have to address it before you adopt anything here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have a suggestion, adding to this rules and regulations thing. Patron may stay for up to 365 days with the Fort Clark Springs FRA membership. We're gonna get started there. And then stays exceeding 365 days
What
must, oh, I'm on this page.
Oh,
They
And
do
I'm
that now.
just adding this
Oh.
thing. But it's not a rule, it's just a common practice, right? Is that kind of what I understand? It's not an actual rule. So for the ones that are freeloading, like Debbie suggested, for the $350 a month, yet we all have to pay whatever we have to pay. This kind of addresses that, and then.
So,
Did the committee talk about this at all, or did anybody know? You were on the committee.
Oh, you did talk about it,
So it had been talked about, and why wasn't it put in here?
It's a hard question.
Oh, no, I get it, but I don't know what was
I didn't do the
discussed.
final bit. Joe Lackness did, he would have liked it in here, but he will be the next time. I know we talked about grandfathering in the ones that are already here full-time, or, you know,
But wouldn't it make sense also, the ones that are here full-time be back there because they're not moving their
yeah,
trailers in
yeah,
and
one-
out all the
workers
time?
on one
And let the
end
ones
and
that are coming and going have the.
Needs to be separated out.
yes, absolutely.
But the idea that if you stay more than a certain number of days, 60, 90, 180,
Mhm.
then to continue would require an FRM.
Oh, I think that's.
well, first of all, that's kind of redundant. I doubt if you'll find anybody that stays there for a year or longer that's not an FRM, because they get $100 a month. Every month they get their site.
Yeah, they're getting it about
reduced
$60
by
cheaper by
$100.
having that $35 membership.
Best deal in town.
So,
They do.
Yeah, you're right about
But is
that.
that a rule?
But
Is it in here?
Well,
the discount,
No,
Should
I'm
they
not
get
just
a
talking about a
discount?
discount, I'm talking about just the fact that you gotta do that.
if it's an RV park, should they get a discount?
I think
It's an
Dan's
RV
saying- I
park,
think
the
Dan's
rate
saying-
is the rate, and then if you wanna have an FRM, you pay whatever the rate is for an FRM.
I think Dan's saying naturally, the economical way of doing it is to get the FRM and benefit
well,
from it.
anybody with an ounce of sense that's gonna stay there for a year will pay $100 this month to save 35 or 40.
So the issue remains, Debbie, as you were discussing, the issue remains that we have people living full-time,
Mhm,
all the benefits
mhm.
without any of the obligation.
And then you've also got the issue of the people that are here to work, and the FRMs are being pushed on them, well, then they get that, and I know most working companies, they get per diem, so they're buying that out of their own pocket, they're getting a cheaper rent, and then they're getting cheaper golf, and they wanna play golf and everything else.
Because
Is that beneficial to Fort Clark?
Because just like in the motel, when you stay at the motel, you have all the benefits, well, most of the benefits, the amenities
Mhm.
of the fort, same way at the RV park, just by renting the
35.
space there for $35, whatever it is, you get the full benefits. And so a person comes and stays there forever, gets full benefit of the fort without,
Paying for it.
But the
Paying any
difference
of the
there, though,
services.
the difference is at the motel, you have a definitive check-in and check-out time, or date.
yeah. but
And
And
nobody's
most
there
people
for a
don't
year.
stay in
Do
the
we have people
motel
there for up
for,
to a
in the
year?
motel
it's-
for.
huh?
Do we have people at the motel for up to a
Absolutely
year?
all of them.
So I don't know, but my whole point is when you buy that $35 thing, you're getting $60 every month right up front.
And
And
that-
then at the golf course, every time you play, you're paying $12 instead of $22. So is it beneficial to Fort Clark?
And this is what Ms. Pat said, it's a tough question.
It is a tough
Well,
question.
and to make sure that it doesn't sound too simple, you know, you have the question of electricity and meters.
That's right.
I don't, in all of our travels all over the country, I never ran into an RV park where you could stay for 1 month or longer without paying for your electricity.
So what-
And they make a profit on it up to a point, some of
Sure.
them. Now, Grande and Mercedes, we were paying $180 per month for electric.
I would recommend that when the board meets to consider the priorities of the 10-year plan, that we consider doing exactly that, putting meters in where
Well,
our
that
RVs
was
are
the
gonna stay.
recommendation from that.
And,
committee,
and, well,
Some-
not officially, I don't think
I
they
don't
were
think
made
so.
official.
Some parks will have just certain sites
Right.
with meters, and those are the only ones available for a month or longer stay.
And this is a discussion for that meeting, but I still say that since this is a gateway, we really need to be pouring some money into it, just in the same way that we're pouring money into the motel.
But I do know with that 18.5% raise with Rio Grande, where our RV park is with Rio Grande, those electric bills, I know, have definitely gone up. And our rates did not go up.
Well, and today's RVs are all electric, most of them are. They heat with electric heat pump or little plug-in heaters, everything runs electrically, because RVers are not dumb. And they know if they get electricity included in their rate, they use it. They don't buy propane, they use the electricity.
So we need to address the question of long-term tenants. We need to address the question of the amenities associated with that. We need to address the question of utilities and rates. So make a mental note that these are questions we're gonna have to answer before we can adopt these rules.
Exactly.
Well, that's why I asked the question, what's the point of the RV park? Is it for someone to have that kind of a stay that you're talking about, Debbie, or is it so we can use it as a motel on wheels to generate income for this?
Well, I think I know as a realtor, that RV park, that's where a lot of our residents come from, is that RV park.
Right.
And, I do know that for a fact.
Big
And-
residents that started off.
Yes, exactly.
And it is in my mind that that really needs to be the thrust of our marketing whenever we
Well,
get to marketing. Should be the
you are
thrust of it.
100% right.
But shouldn't it be, like, I'm just asking a question, shouldn't it be one of those things where it's more quote unquote painful to pay the expense of staying in an RV park as opposed to going and setting up your own place to live on the fort if you like it that much? Or should it be something that it's, oh, well, this is really cheap, so let me just stay here and I'll call this place my home?
Well, that's what's happening.
That's what's
Right,
happening.
that's what I'm saying, like, this is a redundant.
But
question, I
also what
guess.
is happening, those full-timers, and some of them had gotten so far out of hand on the looks of it that it brings the whole RV park down. The air conditioners
Which
hanging.
is what Chuck was
Yeah.
referring to
Hang on
earlier
a second.
too, when they then expand out beyond their,
And now we've got porches, and now I'm parking my
Decks.
vehicle here because nobody's here right now. I'll move it if somebody comes in. That's where the rules need to really come in for everybody. But again,
It's the,
the fort's gonna have to make the decision
have good
how we
rules.
wanna go with it.
but they're not enforced.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
why I
The
su-
problem.
This is why I suggested the tiered,
The
if
problem.
first
Lisa?
offense this.
Well,
I'm sorry, Maria, I didn't.
I just wanted to say, whether we do long-term or not, if we limit those permanent to only a few spots, then that still leaves plenty.
Yeah, there's a lot of space out
There's a
there.
lot of space for what we're talking about, to bring people in, to make the money, to get people to move to Fort Clark.
I think that's kind of what Chuck was after by saying you put the so-called permanent people way in the back,
Yeah.
you know.
And I mean, yes, they are a drain, but if we limit,
No, I understand that, but the
Yeah.
point is if you move them to a certain area, toward the back of the park, they
Yeah.
still, if they feel they want to be involved with the RVers, they can be, but they're not living with the RVers.
Yes.
right,
And
you're
that's
not
what you're
turning the
getting
whole
at,
park
right?
into it.
So that's something we could look at. That may require adding some spaces.
And I think those type of people also need to definitely pay their electric.
Oh, yeah, they put them
For
on.
sure.
Right, they put them on their own meters and own water and the whole 9 yards.
and I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but a thought does occur to me that we should maybe require that they move their unit to another spot every so often.
Yes.
Otherwise, they come to own the
On
property
the
that they
property.
sit on.
No, I agree with that too. That's the reason it was in there, that you couldn't stay in there 365 days a year. You had to move it at least 1 week to somewhere else.
Yeah, it says it in the rules, like 30 days.
For non-members.
For non-members.
Yeah, but if we change that to
Patrons.
patrons of the
It used to
RV.
be in our rules and regulations, but I couldn't find it the last time I actually looked for it.
Yeah.
Are we all aware of a couple other things in here that
Okay. On
Somebody's
the
saying-
utility structures for the long term, so we're going to include a number of parks
Workers.
in New Mexico that had full-term residents, and they had metered electricity. on both sides for those people who wanted to stay longer. So I don't know if Rio Grande would be willing to do that or not, but that's the way those parks over there were set up.
I'm sure if you pay them to do it.
No, I don't think there should be any subleasing.
Well, no, that's in the rules, no subleasing.
Well,
And-
Dan asked the question.
And in other RV park rules, every single one of them had no subleasing on that, so.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, so I had to do a lot of research.
Well, I think we should have it, and I've been complaining about that for a year and a half, 2 years. That's not what we're maintaining an RV park for, to provide a platform for a cheap rental operation.
Exactly.
It also, so I'm glad to see that in there, but also it says no sheds, decks, cabinets, workbenches, or fences.
Yes.
Now, you get people staying there all year round, many of them put in decks. A friend of mine up in northeast Oklahoma called yesterday, was telling me he just finished building a deck around his RV. So,
Well, we've got that now.
And that's what I mean when I say that they begin to own the property, they begin to make it their own and put sheds and
Sure.
decks and things on them, so.
Well,
So then what
we
happens
had
is-
a contractor out of there. I really don't think you should run a business out of there either, lawnmower or anything else.
But then what
Sorry.
happens if you're violating the rules?
I'm not naming names, I'm just saying.
We're hoping that with these new rules and regulations, that enforcement becomes an easier task.
Yes.
well, for now, is there anything else that anyone wants to address on the RV?
No, I think we got a basis to start with, so we can, tweak.
Once it's incorporated, then we can
Right,
go back and forth.
right, go to the RV section and you can compare the two and add and subtract.
Give us all times to, a little more time to ponder some of these difficult questions.
And I'll email you that
All
later.
right, so do we want to move on now to the tenant registration?
You got about 25 minutes.
And then they have like a drop down.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Huh?
Time flies when you're
When
having
you're
fun.
having fun.
So you drop down the rates and the duration, and that's where that form is. So you can just, I just think that's a good benchmark, and that has all the rules
I
on there.
guess we could start on how much it's gonna,
Well, then we just start with the form.
the form itself on the tenant registration.
Oh, tenant registration. I didn't have too much issue with the registration, but the back page, I had a question about tenant cards. What do those look like?
I don't know.
I don't think
They
we have
used to
them
just,
anymore.
I don't think we have them anymore, to tell you the truth.
They're not used anymore.
Have what?
Tenant card when,
No.
Membership card?
normally when I had some, again, I don't do rentals anymore, but when I had to come down here, they would put it, they had a business card, and they would put the person's name in it, and it would be good for 7 days. But it was just on a piece of like a business card. Now, I specified because I had a tenant that was stopped walking the trails, and they were asked where they stayed, and they told them, says, well, you don't have the right to do anything but go from the gate to your house if you're not paying Fort Park anything.
Years ago, when they had renters, they had to pay a fee
Yes, they did.
to get the tenant card, if you will, and it was only good for the length of the lease.
Right, which would make sense.
Well, I've never had to pay for it as the
Well, I know, but
manager,
I'm
or the
saying-
owner could actually do it and get it for his guest, or.
Right, that's possible too, but the way it was that the tenant had to have a card of sorts.
Okay, our suggestion of that was based on the fact that the owner of the property is already paying a membership on that property, as well as the assessment for the property itself. And so that membership has already been paid.
For him.
For the
For the
owner.
member,
For
for
the
the
owner.
member, if
Yeah.
you'll go to your bylaws or your declarations, your rules, it states that that membership is for the person that owns the membership, not, and it specifies
And their family.
specifically.
If you are able to claim them on your taxes, and they are considered your.
Your
It is,
Yes, yeah, we,
it is
yeah.
a person whose name is on the title
title.
Yes,
and their
And it,
immediate family.
that's what it states.
pertaining to tax returns.
I would like to know how much more cost it is for the renter stickers,
Well, those
or
are-
those cards, if you're gonna have those cards. How much more does it cost for security to do what they need to do? And how much more does it cost for the front office when you look at what they're wanting the front office to do in employee cost?
I think more like time is.
Well, it's time, but there is more,
Cost.
exactly.
For the
Do we-
cards and the stickers
This-
and whatnot, I can't imagine that it would be very much.
I thought the stickers were pretty
Well,
expensive.
the stickers themselves, as a, like a renter
Uh-huh.
sticker or something of that sort, that would be more expensive, but then in terms of, issuing cards,
But now they're also, when I was looking at some of this stuff, they're wanting the fort to administer the cards, they're wanting the fort to,
Well, Debbie, while you're looking, let me
Okay.
ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Would do like, like, let's say Amazon. You buy something on Amazon, you pay shipping and handling.
Mhm.
We could do something like that, where there's a shipping, not called shipping and handling, but
If you're a prime
administration fee or something.
Process.
If you're Amazon Prime, you
Processing
don't pay
fee.
shipping. If you're Amazon Prime, you don't pay shipping.
I'm not,
but
I
again,
know,
in
but
here
the
in
point being
spots,
is that
Yes.
it's
it's
wanting the
become
fort to
amendable to
take
do
over
that,
so
right?
many things, and they have no responsibilities as the owner of the property either.
I was gonna get back to the first part of the
Okay.
registration form where it says, must be renewed every 6 months. I think there has to be made clearly who's responsible. One of our landlords here at one of our previous workshops seemed to think it was the responsibility of the fort.
Of the fort,
To know, it seemed to me it's a responsibility.
and you let them know when their lease expires.
You know, my driver's license expires this month, nobody notifies me.
I know, that was another concern I
State of Texas
had.
didn't send me a damn thing, I had to keep track of it all myself.
Well, I don't think that's a realistic statement anyway. I had that as my notes. I think when someone is coming in to say, I'm a tenant, then they provide their lease, which is what was written in here. But if it is a card, which apparently we don't do, because I do have multiple friends who do rent, and they don't have a special tag on their car, and they do not have a tenant card. And the current rules and regulations say that they get a special sticker and a tenant card, but that is not happening. So,
well, I think the sticker is, but
no, like they got a regular membership sticker.
That was in one of the workshops before.
And I have 3 friends that have that same sticker, and they're all tenants. And so my suggestion is kind of like an in-processing kind of a thing, and this would probably go more on a property manager than it would for our office, but part of the in-processing kind of package, if you will, similar when you're closing on a house, is they provide that lease, and then part of the notes on the account become, well, this individual is in a lease for this amount of time, and I think that's more realistic. But I don't believe it's the responsibility of the fort to say, hey, dude, you got 5 days left on your
No.
thing. That's not the job for this administration.
Why is the registration form only for 6 months and not the length of the lease?
But that was my question, like, it should be the length of the lease.
And again, this is only by experience. A couple come in here, they're not married, they rent a property, and when it gets into it, 2 weeks after they rent the property, they split up. Then he's coming in harassing the person he's living with, but he's coming in using all the facilities again now, and they're no longer together. So at least that way you do have some control.
But
And they're not married.
But all that stuff, Debbie, no
Let me ask
offense,
a question.
that's not our problem.
No, it's not
Our problem is the registration, and if they're both on the lease, then that's not our problem with the lease. Our problem is.
But when you allow
who's
somebody to
registered.
come in and there's harassment going on, it becomes our problem.
When you got a
Yeah,
2-year
that's-
lease, you want it to use, have
Is
an,
it possible
I'm
say,
just-
2-year lease, you want an
require
opportunity
renters
to see
to have
things
a
on the street.
recreational membership?
That's what I
Every 6
suggest.
months.
Every
I do.
6 months. So it's kind of
But we're not
just-
there yet, we're not there yet.
I don't know, I'm just telling you, and it happened to me, I do know it was a problem. Then it was the girlfriend got involved, and then the police got
But that's a
involved.
domestic dispute. That
Yeah.
has nothing to do with. the
But if you're
industry.
allowing these
For that.
same people with nobody monitoring it, then how are they coming in if they're not on the lease, on that lease anymore? I don't know.
I think what
It was a
Debbie-
problem.
Is saying by renewing it every 6 months, it keeps us more up to date on the situation of that property and its tenants.
But that's not our
Could
problem.
it be,
Yeah, now
must
you're getting
be
involved in people's
reviewed
personal lives and the
every
liability
6
on that
months
is
instead of
astronomical.
renewed?
Huh?
What about reviewed every 6 months?
Well, a tenant, it's already in here that you're going to redo the stickers every 6 months.
But that's not happening. Like the stickers
But
aren't
the point is that
happening.
why, if you
Consistent.
review this, why would you have to change the sticker? You can do the same thing with the
Really?
sticker, review.
I believe it states in there that the property is rented to a single person, okay? And then if they bring somebody else in, then they have to register that other person as well. Now, that other person has no claims to the property whatsoever, only the renter does.
But when I rent
That-
to a
yeah,
couple,
that's
I
not
want to know who's in it, and they sign the lease together.
But
They
that's
sign a lease
you as a
together.
property manager. The association shouldn't give two craps about who you're living with. I should care.
I'm not talking about, I'm just talking about, so, this particular case, he got another girlfriend, he's still using the membership that he's supposed to be on a lease with.
That's not our
Now, she gets somebody else living with her, and you don't know that this guy's no longer on that lease, because we didn't know that before. I don't know, I'm just saying.
In that case,
Well,
though,
shouldn't that be the obligation of?
But here, they're wanting the Ford to
Landlord.
monitor all that. They're wanting the
Shouldn't that
Ford
be the
employees to monitor all of that.
No, that's a landlord's deal.
but that's what we're
Exactly.
talking about
And
right
if the
here.
landlord is not following the rules, then he should
Exactly.
be assessed an assessment for not following the rules, which we will get to eventually.
And I believe that's stated in there, it says that all 4 rules apply and all of this stuff.
Exactly.
And it's very plain.
And I-
And what's more, specific rules for renters are stressed. There's a whole list of them there.
Right, I understand that. And what I'm saying is though, we have to know who the renters are and who, what, when, where, and why, but that's all we have to know.
Yeah, we just
It's
need
the
to know
that here.
landowner's problem to monitor what's going on there, not
Yeah.
ours.
And then infractions that
Exactly.
occur on their
And the-
property is their
And
problem.
the check-in process was set up so that both security and admin will know exactly who's on the property or who is allowed on the property.
Right, I agree with that, and also that if a renter is gonna be here for any length of time, which was just stated, they are not allowed to use any facilities,
Unless you have recreational.
right? They have to purchase a recreational membership to use facilities.
Yep.
Solves.
No, that's not what they're wanting. They're wanting the renter to have full membership
No.
privileges.
But it
That's
doesn't
what they
matter
want. That's
it
not
doesn't
what
matter
we
they
want.
We're here
That's not
reviewing
what we
that.
want.
Well,
No way.
That's, I understand that.
So,
You know, we've got so many problems with people who have stickers on their car that don't even belong here anymore.
No, you're
And
right.
they drive right in.
They
That's
do.
true.
We should have the right
yes.
that somebody who is in violation of whatever, that doesn't live here anymore, doesn't own anything anymore, is not an FRM, that we have the right to take that sticker off their car.
And
I
Yes, you
agree
do.
100%.
I have a
Yes, you
suggestion
do.
about the
And
stickers.
what's more, we had discussed that it'd be the landlord's responsibility on the last day to remove that sticker. Well, I don't think we put that in because.
It's not in
Well,
here.
that's not what I
I
read.
It's like-
don't think it's in there, but we
No.
had discussed that as a possibility.
I do have a
Yes, in
suggestion.
the event I
for-
terminate my Fort Clark rental property, I agree that I must remove my gate passes from any vehicle.
I
Right.
think there's different
Um, So you know how when you go register your golf cart in town to be able to drive it off the installation, how they give you a big sticker and it has an expiration date on it, and they just write it on there. The city does. Why can't we do that for tenants?
They don't do that anymore, do they?
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
They
they
just had to
do.
get a new one. Because mine was expired for a long time.
Well,
But I
I
have a
don't
date.
know, I don't know if they enforce it, let me put it that way.
Well, but I have a date, so would that be something that's not necessarily cross prohibitive, because it doesn't say a definitive, you have 100 days or whatever with this thing. You write it with a Sharpie, from the security shack, that here's your sticker as a tenant, and you have the date where it says it expires, and then at that point, it makes it a little easier for security to eye that sticker, and they can look at that date, kinda like when they do that little sheet of, that little rectangular sheet when you have a guest, and they put the date that it expires.
Well, you could do like the highway department, motor vehicle do, you get a sticker with a date on it.
You can use all the amenities.
Right, but you have to pay extra money for those dates. And this way, you're buying one blank sticker that says Fort Clark Springs long-term guest or tenant or whatever, and then it has expires on, and then you write the date in.
They're a different color anyway,
We
aren't they?
need to do that. That should be just-
They're a different color.
I've never
They
seen
have
one.
in the past. Let me suggest this. Let me talk to security, what they think might be a solution to the sticker issue, or tag issue, or anything of that sort, because as I'm sitting here thinking about it, we're not gonna be able to control or manage the property owner taking stickers off or confiscating tags or anything of that sort. But it may be, actually, it may be necessary to do something as difficult as it might be, to do something like every month, a new kind of placard that has to be on the dashboard or something of that sort.
I don't think that's realistic.
Says renter
But
or something?
Well, the renter
something that will
sticker is
change.
green or something, it's not like.
I'm saying it's a different placard, so that if you don't have this month's placard, we can then stop you at the gate and find out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea, but I don't know how realistic that is.
Well, I
for the
don't either,
workload.
but that's why I say I need to talk to security to see maybe something of that fashion that will allow us to stay on top of it and to do it ourselves, because I'll tell you now,
That's a joke.
the landowners are not gonna do it.
Right.
And,
But that was another question I had, because when you read this and you read it as a board member, it looks like they want the fort to take care of everything with no responsibility coming from
I'm
them.
just trying to figure out the
No,
simplest way
I
to
know.
do that, if they have to get a new placard every month, then that causes somebody to review what is their current registration too,
A
so.
lot of landowners don't even live here,
And they have managers, yeah.
Yeah.
and they have managers that rent their property.
But then we have some that live here and they have like 3 or 4 properties that they rent.
Sure.
And then you have also, it's a related issue, but it's not the same as a renter. And that is a property owner who has someone who's not their immediate family, or even if it is immediate family, it can be brother, sister, or something of that sort. who's
Then on
living with
taxes,
them
what
as
have
well.
you.
Exactly, how do they get stickers in a case like that?
Well,
I
again,
think that's gonna be addressed, we talked about that, I think, in the rules and regulations.
but it's a related issue.
Yes.
Here, you have people living on the fort
Can we
who are not
please limit the
members.
conversations
On-
out there?
On the sticker issue, my son lives in a gated apartment community in far north Dallas, and they have stickers that you punch, for like, it'd be 2018, and then you punch the month in which your lease is up.
Right.
And it's very easy to see at a glance, you know, when security gets used to looking at the stickers, they're gonna see where that punch is located as per the month and what row.
But if on the basis of that sticker, they're allowed to buzz through, it's not gonna be that easy.
Excuse me, can we
If
keep
they're
the
allowed-
conversations like with one person at a time? I'm sorry, I can't pay attention to what's everybody's
If,
saying.
you say it's easy for security to then see, but if they're buzzing through the gate on the basis of that sticker, then they're not gonna be able to stop them, they're not gonna be able to address it then and there. If, however, there's something more visible, something that, and again, has to be changed out regularly, then we have a little bit more control. Remember, this is not a secure gate, it's a controlled gate, and sometimes not very well. So we have to look for ideas that will allow the security personnel to bring people aside to deal with those kinds of issues, and I'm not sure a punch card's gonna do that. that's why I say I wanna talk to security and let's see what they say would be a good thing. How can, since they do it every day, how is it that they can bring people over? Now, another possibility might be to periodically and sporadically and randomly block off the member access and require all folks to come by the gate, by the door, in order to just be waved through or to discuss what's happening with their registration issues and the like. Again, let me talk to security and find out what they think might be a solution to this kind of an issue. It's just not as easy as it might appear.
Could the actual person renting the property every 6 months come up and let you know that the renters are still the same?
If they actually do that, I mean.
Well, again, I was saying if there's a frequent change out of the tag, sticker, placard, or what have you, if there's a frequent change out, they've got to then address it. You
Well,
don't
that's
have, you
what
don't
I'm-
have a current placard. You're gonna have to stop and we're gonna have to talk about your
Well,
registration.
that's what Dan was saying. There was so many stickers that never were pulled after people left the fort that, and they won't come through and take it until you force them, and they find out when you're checking stickers, and they won't come through until later in the day or something.
Yeah, you know, if somebody's gonna scam the system,
They
they're
are.
gonna scam the system.
They are.
Yeah.
I think part of the idea or the solution would be, as Richard said, is that every so often that they just close the member entrance gate and have to come through right in front of security. Let them check the stickers.
I don't have a problem. You
Valid?
can't do it
Okay,
at
go ahead.
lunchtime or
No.
when.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, in the rules and regulation document that our committee put forth, section 7 has a big paragraph on decals and passes. So you might want to look at that. Maybe some of the answers to our problems are in that paragraph.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
like
don't
the
know if
tenant
it
card and all
addresses
that.
the renter's situation.
Well, the first paragraph says the landlord must accompany the renter, or the renter must show a signed lease agreement. And you could just
That's
add
true.
on every 6 months or whatever you decide.
Right, but that's assuming that a landlord would do that. Some landlords don't live here, so.
That's not
Yeah,
our problem.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not our
so,
problem.
so what I'm kind of suggesting is that when very similar to when you were buying a lot and you're having to close the property, everybody has to go, not to you, but to like Gabby, and they have to fill out the transfer paperwork and they have to fill out the forms. And then when I moved here, granted it might have changed a little bit, but when I moved here, we filled out the paperwork and we had to show it to security that we were living here now. And then security gave us forms to fill out for our cars, and then we got our stickers. What I'm suggesting for this is a similar type of deal, except instead of a realtor coming with the prospective buyer and saying, here's the place to go, the landlord is saying, or the property manager is saying, here is the package that is gonna have to be filled out and given to the administrative office. And at that point, the administrative office makes sure it's filled out, they have the copy of the lease, and then they give them the blessing to be able to go get the tag at the security shack, whether that is the decal of the month or the circle that says expiration date, and security can look at that form and say, oh, your term expires 1/19/2019. So that becomes the date that's written on there, and then you've got that sticker. But in my opinion, having to have worked the gate once, with cars zooming by, you have to have something that can catch your eye quickly when you're looking at all these things. And maybe that is a big circle that has an expiration date on it that's ugly, but you know, you put a sticker on there that's very evident to any security guard that is working a gate that, oh, that guy's a different one, that's a tenant, let me see the date. And if that date is expired, then they can at that point engage if they need to go get that car out of there. But I think it's a process, as opposed to look at the verbiage on these, it's a process. And if we tailor it the same as when you're buying a lot to become a member and to become a homeowner, I think that will help alleviate the process confusion a little bit. That's my opinion.
No, I get it, but then you turn in your lease and like you were saying, if lease is for 2 years, and then Joe Blow's son now comes in here and his family and stays in that same house, is the person renting the property getting back to the fort and putting these extra people on these leases?
Well, now
Do we
you're-
really know who? Are they getting a 7-day pass every week or something? I don't know.
Some of them, some of the landowners or the managers are very good about that, others are not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a free-for-all. And yeah, it's very hard to keep track of who's really supposed to be on the book, who's not.
Some of it is a tag team situation. One guy rents it, he stays there a couple months, and he bumps down the street and brings in his buddy, takes over that, he rents another one.
And that's happening over there in 15 right now, and the place looks like crap.
That's
Trash
what-
is in the road.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, trash is in the road, there's crap all over out there, beer cans in the road, in the property, and it just looks awful. So where is the person that owns that property, and why haven't they gotten some type of a notice?
That goes into my other notes.
Okay,
Oh.
How does the new
person get a sticker?
I don't either.
Yes, ma'am.
To recognize the sticker is easier, why don't you just put a giant T on it for tenant? That way they know which ones are renting.
The renter stickers are
Would
not
have
a different color
expiration
now?
date on it.
You know, I don't
Never
even.
know.
They used to
I don't
be
even know
green.
anymore. Yeah, and we're about to switch again come January, we're gonna have a new sticker too. And that may be the time, hopefully by then we'll have a solution, we'll be able to resolve this. I think what we definitely need to do is begin examining who is and who is not a member. To begin examining who is a tenant and who is on the deed, and if the person's not on the deed, then we have many situations like that. We have a person on the deed and the person staying with them is not.
Is not.
And yet we live in a different world today, and anybody lives with anybody, and
Well, I know at one time, when you went through the renter's items, it only cost you like $25 to $50 to transfer the membership itself. Not the property, but the membership up here. And when it went up to the 150 now to transfer it, that way that you were going by your rules, because now that transfer of strictly the membership is in the renter's name. But they said that the owner says, well, they moved off, I didn't realize. You're really renting a property and you don't know when they move out?
But that's
Come
not
on.
our problem. That part's not our concern.
Our concern is who's living in the property is actually the person that should get,
who's now living in the property.
now living in the property is actually the way your rules and regulations state.
Yeah, and truly, our declarations, the way they exist, as the way that they have been revised as of last year,
Okay.
is that a member is one who is a property owner. That person's name is on the deed, or they are an FRM, or they are a charter member.
Yes.
That defines what is a
Member.
And I think we run into difficulties if we then say, well, now, since that person is renting, they have all of the privileges of the member. I think that's gonna go over like a lead balloon, and I don't think it can be justified by the declarations. And then if we have someone living with that person who is not a member, by definition, we have still another problem. I don't know the solution to it. I really do not know. I've pondered it, but you cannot prevent a person from having a partner come live with them.
Well, if
But
they use the
that
same
partner
name or
does
share a
not
bank
become-
account, they are in Texas considered a spouse.
That would be
Any way you
common
look at
law.
it.
That's
Yes, that would be
common law.
common law.
But how do we monitor common law?
But again, how can I, as somebody that's renting the property, be responsible for another grown man and his family, seriously, to the fore?
But that's the way
I
that
know
it
that's how
exists
it's-
now.
It does.
And so the opposite side of that coin is, if you're not responsible as the property owner for your tenant, and your tenant goes amok, who's responsible?
Again, it's gonna be the
How do you
landlord.
hold
Well,
the
the way
tenant?
it's written here,
But if they
is
have to
the
get some-
landlord is,
Yes, but if they have to get some type of a membership themselves, then they are responsible to you also. somehow, whatever.
Well, then they certainly fall in under the rules and regulations, and they can be assessed, an individual enforcement assessment, if they're a member. If they're not a member,
You've got
so it
nothing
may be that you
restricted.
have to require membership.
Okay, the way that was put in there is the responsibility of if an assessment is there, that goes to the landowner. So therefore, the lot owner is the enforcing agent there. Either they cough up to $200 a day, or they hit the tenant and say, get the hell out of here.
But
So
that's
Lisa
holding,
Hutter-
that's ultimately holding the property owner responsible
Right.
for
Yes.
their tenant.
Yes.
And Debbie's arguing that that's an issue, that's a problem.
It is.
Well, there's
Say
lots-
somebody runs out here and you're renting a place and it's fully furnished, you got nothing invested but a month-to-month issue, and they run over somebody and leave the fort immediately. Go in, pick their stuff up in the middle of the night, and they're gone. I don't want that responsibility. I really don't. And then say you're going down the road seeing that person leave, you don't know if he's a renter or whatever. The next day, we're trying to figure out who run over this poor kid or this poor lady or whatever. He has, at least if he was responsible to the fort, we would know something about that particular person and a license plate.
Wouldn't that be the responsibility of the sheriff's department?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're talking about law enforcement at that point, Debbie, because that's not our responsibility, but whatever.
But it still is my responsibility because he was my renter.
Let's bring it down to something more realistic. That tenant leaves in the middle of the night and leaves his sofa and the refrigerator and all of his junk in the front yard and booties. Okay,
It's
who's
happening.
responsible for that?
It should.
It's the landlord
Landlord.
who's responsible.
It
The
is.
owner, really, the owner.
Right.
What are you trying to say, Lisa?
Yeah, get her hands out, please. You should have said, please.
You keep going.
You know, I don't know, I know we keep talking around it, but would requiring an FRM of any renter help trigger some of the expiration date? Because if you have an FRM and you are leasing for 6 months, and after 6 months you leave and you drop, you leave, you're gonna stop paying that FRM, that's gonna trigger the court to say, okay, they're expired, they're no
Exactly.
longer, would that help with some of this, they're coming, the stickers aren't being removed, would that help trigger some of that?
Well, it also came up, Lisa, I don't know if you attended any of those workshops, but it also come up with, so the people, to get an FRM, that's gonna cost that renter who's done paid an upfront fee, a last month's fee, or a deposit, whatever you wanna call it. And then to get an FRM, that's $167 in that same month. If you come up with some type of a renter's fee, again, it becomes, they're kind of responsible. But if you can't just tell them, well, we'll work with the renters and they don't have to pay the $167, they can just start paying the $35. As a member, if she comes in here and she gets an FRM and she has to pay $167, and somebody gets wind that these renters don't have to pay that or something, that's the reason I don't know how that could work out with, after they've just come in here and paid all these fees.
Well, I guess I look at it like, it's a privilege to live on
It
this
is a
board.
privilege.
So then it needs to be expensive,
Right.
so to speak, it's like living in a high-end
Well,
property,
like
apartment complex. If you want all those amenities, you're gonna have to pay the big deposits, you're gonna have to pay that kind of stuff. So would that kind of weed out some of what we're having troubles with? You have to pay all this stuff up front. You have to be a member, you have to be all of this. Then those ones that are maybe questionable are gonna go, oh, I don't wanna live on the court for that.
I completely agree with that, because.
I do too.
Because, like, when you buy a house or you buy a lot, you have to pay the transfer fee per lot. Whether you decide you wanna live here or not, that's non-negotiable. And then it rolls into
And
membership.
you pay it the same day at closing.
Yes.
Well, not to mention, we can't monitor the people off-season at the pool. They can go to the pool, they don't have an FRM, they can go to the pool, they can go on the trails, they can go everywhere they want, and they have no FRM.
There's no
And-
monitoring
And it
that.
would
That's
seem to
right.
me, that part of the solution, not totally, but part of the solution is, I think, if you're going to be living on the fort as a renter, you should also have an FRM.
Yep.
And,
That's what I said all along.
and then they are actually truly subject to the rules and regulations of the fort. Now, as far as they're having to pay this extra that you're talking about, you know, the reality is, it's more expensive to live on the fort
Sure it is.
than it is to live in town.
Sure it is.
And,
Yep.
and with that comes the privilege of living on the fort. We have to keep in mind too, that these lot owners, property owners, they're making a profit.
That's the reason they buy these things.
Exactly, and so should they be making a profit and the fort, I hate to say it this way, but the fort get nothing? You know,
I think that it's after 11, isn't that when?
Yeah.
She's gotta leave by 11:30.
I need to leave by 11:30.
I know, I think we all agreed on 11. I don't care myself, but that's what we
it sounds like
agreed
we
on.
could stop the place anyway, because it's, my head's about to explode with so many issues to be discussed.
As far as the next session, when we want to take this up, does anybody have any ideas?
I don't right now. I haven't seen a calendar. We've got a lot going
I
on.
didn't bring my calendar. Never found it. I'll put my phone down here. Do you wanna try to do it? I mean, I don't know what's really going on.
Certainly after the holiday. I mean,
That's-
Thanksgiving holiday.
How about Thursday?
We can have turkey here.
Hey, I've already got Thursday planned for me.
Okay,
I know.
Debbie, when's your birthday again? Let's do it then.
It ain't got nothing to do with birthday.
I have to excuse myself, I've had too much. Y'all decide this.
I think what we ought to do is, you know, we talked about a lot of things. Come up with some suggestions.
Well, what about if we wanted